In an age of empires and conquest, when kings ruled with absolute authority and nations rose and fell at the sound of a command, there stood a kingdom unlike any before it. The kingdom of Babylon had fallen, and in its place, under the rule of King Darius, a new order began. The vast empire stretched across lands unknown to many, rich in power, wealth, and ambition. Yet even in such greatness, the strength of a kingdom would soon be tested, not by war, not by rebellion, but by the quiet faith of one man. His name was Daniel. He was not born into power. He was not raised among kings. Daniel was a foreigner, taken from his homeland long ago, carried into exile when his people were conquered. Yet through wisdom, discipline, and an unwavering devotion to his God, he rose, higher than anyone expected. Daniel became known throughout the kingdom, not for wealth, not for force, but for integrity. He could not be bribed, he could not be corrupted, he could not be shaken, and this made him dangerous. King Darius, a ruler both wise and ambitious, recognized something rare in Daniel. Among governors and officials who sought their own gain, Daniel stood apart, faithful, dependable, and just. So the king made a decision. He placed Daniel above all others, above princes, above governors, above men who had spent their lives chasing power. And just like that, jealousy was born. In the shadows of the royal court, whispers began to spread. The officials gathered in secret, their voices low but filled with bitterness. They searched for faults in Daniel. They examined his work. They watched his actions. But they found nothing. No corruption, no dishonesty, no weakness, only faith. And then they understood. If Daniel could not be broken by his actions, he would be broken by his devotion. Every day, without fail, Daniel would go to his chamber. He would open his window, facing toward the land he once called home, and he would kneel, not once, not twice, but 3 times a day, and he would pray, not in secret, not in fear, but openly, faithfully, consistently, to his God. The officials smiled. They had found their weapon. They approached King Darius with careful words, wrapped in flattery and deception. They praised his greatness. They honored his authority. They spoke of unity in the kingdom. And then they made their request. For 30 days, no one should pray to any god or man except the king himself. It sounded harmless, even wise. A way to strengthen loyalty. A way to unify the people. And so, without seeing the trap being set before him, the king agreed. The decree was written, sealed by law, irrevocable. Anyone who disobeyed would be thrown into the lion's den. When Daniel heard the decree, he did not panic, he did not argue, he did not hide, he simply returned home, as he always had. The window opened, the light poured in, and Daniel knelt. Once, twice, 3 times. He prayed, not because it was safe, but because it was right. And they were watching. The officials rushed in, catching him in the act. Not of rebellion, not of crime, but of faith. And with satisfaction, they brought their accusation to the king. At first, King Darius did not understand. But when he heard the name, Daniel, his heart sank. This was no longer politics. This was personal. The king spent the entire day searching for a way out, a loophole, a weakness in the law. But there was none. The law of the Medes and Persians could not be changed, not even by the king himself. And as the sun began to set, reality settled in. Daniel would have to face the punishment. The journey to the lion's den was silent. The air was heavy. The ground seemed to hold its breath. The den itself was deep, dark, and filled with creatures bred for one purpose: destruction. hungry lions, unforgiving, unrelenting. The king's voice trembled as he spoke, not as a ruler, but as a man filled with regret. May your God, whom you serve continually, rescue you. And then Daniel was lowered into darkness, into danger, into what seemed certain death. The stone was rolled into place, the seal was set, and the night began. But inside the den, something extraordinary happened. Where there should have been chaos, there was calm. Where there should have been violence, there was peace. For Daniel was not alone. An unseen presence moved among the lions, a force greater than fear, greater than nature itself. Their mouths were shut, their power restrained, and Daniel rested. Above ground, the king could not. The palace was silent, yet his mind was loud. He refused food. He refused comfort. Sleep would not come, because somewhere beneath him, a man he trusted faced the darkness, and there was nothing he could do. At first light, before the sun fully rose, the king ran. Not walked, not summoned. Ran to the lion's den. His voice broke the morning silence. Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God been able to rescue you? For a moment, there was nothing. And then, a voice, alive, steady, unharmed. My God sent his angel and shut the mouths of the lions. Relief flooded the king like a wave. Daniel was lifted from the den, without injury, without even a mark, because he had trusted. Justice followed swiftly. Those who had conspired against Daniel were brought to the very place they had designed for him. And this time, the lions didn't wait. But the story didn't end in judgment. It ended in recognition. King Darius, once blind to the truth, now saw clearly. He issued a new decree, not of pride, but of reverence. Throughout the entire kingdom, people were commanded to honor the God of Daniel, not as an idea, not as a myth, but as the living God. The one who rescues, the one who saves, the one who reigns beyond kings and kingdoms. And Daniel continued to prosper, not because he sought power, but because he never abandoned his faith. In a world of shifting loyalties, he remained unshaken. In a kingdom built on authority, he answered to something higher. And in the face of death, he chose devotion. Empires rise, empires fall, laws are written, and laws are broken. But faith, true, unwavering faith, stands the test of time, and sometimes it even silences lions. Like, share and subscribe for more Bible stories.